Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Hey, welcome back. I've got somebody that I'm really looking forward to introducing to all of you today, Mr. Todd Watkins. Todd is one of these, honestly, I shouldn't say this, but he's my favorite kind of agent out there because of the fact that he has been up the mountain and down the mountain. He's experienced all the wonderful pleasures and pains of the real estate industry, and the reason that I really appreciate people like Todd is because he's willing to talk about it. He's not trying to be real estate politically correct, and what you're going to learn from this guy is going to blow you away. So, Todd, I hope I'm not setting the bar too high for you.
Sounds great. Well, I hope I can deliver and help some people out today.
Yeah, me too, because like I told you prior to the show starting, there's, probably 20 or 30,000 will eventually listen to this, and if they don't like it, I'm sure they're going to find you and let you know.
Oh,
no,
sure.
I'm kidding. No,
Yeah.
we have great listeners. No, I'm not trying to make you nervous or anything, or, just having fun, that's all. Well, so let's start out by telling them where you sell real estate, and then, if you don't mind, tell a little bit of your background on how you got into real estate and those types of things.
Sure, yeah. So I'm over here in southeastern Washington State. I know it's called the Evergreen State, but no, we don't have a pine tree near us. So it is all desert. So specifically in the Kennewick, Richland, Pasco area with that. And so I've got, people, I should say, connections where we cover from Yakima to Walla Walla, which is claimed for the wine country in the United States here. That 16 years ago, I set out to purchase my first home. I grew up, my dad had construction companies, plumbing companies, had done some development. My grandfather had rental properties. And for me, I knew that I wanted to continue into real estate just because, I'd seen where they were, and rentals were a great way to set yourself free and have your money working for you instead of you working for your money. And so I looked to buy my first home, but I'll tell you, it was a horrible experience, Tim. I fired, I think, 5 or 6 different realtors just trying to buy the first home because I wanted to buy a duplex as a rental. And they kept telling me that I couldn't do that. I can't buy a rental property as my first home. And so then I said, well, fine, I'll go look for a single-family home. And, something fairly basic, 3-bed, 2-bath. Between 1,200, 1,800 square feet with a 2-car garage that I knew I could turn around and rent out when I was ready to move on to my bigger one. And those stinking realtors kept showing me 2-story homes or wanted me to buy one of their listings that they had where they represented to get 2 commissions instead of 1. And I remember the last agent, he's actually still in business in my area here, that I remember he got mad at me and told me, he said, well, you're young, you should just buy this 2-story because you can afford to go up and down stairs and with it. And, I grew up in a 2-story, and I forget stuff all the time. I was going, I don't want to have to go back upstairs. And so that really kind of just was a straw that broke the camel's back, and I eliminated the middleman and got my real estate license. And basically made myself into a one-man show where my goal is to try to help as many families as I can with buying and selling homes so that they never have to have that same experience that I did.
So you are motivating me to tell a personal story because it's hilarious. It's very similar to yours. Julie and I bought our first house when we were in college. It was 280 East Jeffrey. We bought it from the listing agent. She did virtually nothing to help us through the process. She was clearly representing the seller. We didn't have it inspected. Okay, that's how dumb we were. So we got this mortgage we got this mortgage while we were still in college, by the way, because we had another business that was doing quite well. The first morning, Julie's taking a shower. In the shower, stall, there is a glass block window, which evidently was, replacing an original window. I mean, these are not very high quality houses. You can get the gist of what I'm trying to say here. So Julie leans up against the glass block window, and the glass block window basically falls out of the house while she's taking a shower. Yes. And so that was the impetus.
Oh man,
the true story. Well, and that was the motivation. We were like, holy crap, really? And this is how? And she double-ended this house, and this is how, So that put us on the path to getting a real estate license. So I totally relate. See, that's the thing that agents don't understand. It's horrible agents that actually cause the industry to go around and cause all of us to want to get real estate licenses. Anyway, that was a funny story. So
for sure.
I wrote this question down. What would be, like, if you could talk to the Todd Watkins from way back then, and you could save him from some of the, the trials and the unnecessary trials and tribulations of, your path to continued success, what would be the three, it doesn't have to be three, it can be one, it could be two, but what would be the three things that you would tell that, formidable Todd not to do? Three mistakes to avoid.
Oh, man, well, I'll tell you, I struggled early and often, for sure, probably my first 5 years in the real estate industry. And so, I'm going to sidetrack with a little story, Tim. It was actually funny because I actually got fired for my first brokerage because I got 2 months behind on my bills, and I couldn't sell any homes, when I was first in the industry. The broker actually just taught me how to fill out paperwork, just to CYA them, the company, and that was it. And so I got a job at AT&T, and she found out about it. And bless her heart, she was a hardcore DB. I mean, she'd been in it for about 40 years when she was my designated broker there. But she came down, met me right there on the sales floor at AT&T, and told me and said, "Todd, you're either full-time or no time with me." And I told her, I said, "Well, I'm 2 months behind on my bills. I've got to pay them." So I actually got fired right there on the sales floor. Handed me my license. It was already signed off back then. And but it taught me a lot of very valuable lessons as well, because as she was leaving, she told me, she said, "You're either going to be an amazing agent or you're going to go down in flames." And so every time I struggle, I always see that conversation of her with it in there. And so that really has brought me to understand more of myself, I guess, and the tenacity that I have. Same thing with like playing sports. I never gave up. It was always, and I was horrible at wrestling. I loved it, but I was horrible at it. And my first match ever was I had to wrestle. At the time, he was only on his way to taking his second of 3 state titles. And I flopped around like a fish. I made that guy work for a good 30 seconds before he pinned me with things that are there. So it was bad. So, but never giving up, I'd say is one of those attitudes that you just have to have. And you have to have the confidence in yourself to continue to moving forward with things. But I'd say one of the biggest lessons that for sure that I've had to learn the hard way. Not that I had to, I just chose to, right? We all make choices, and I choose to be a little bit more on the stubborn side and had to experience everything for myself instead of learning from others that have been there before me. But
stop there for a second. Stop for a second there. Why? Why do you do that? Why don't you learn from the mistakes of others? Why do you choose to make them yourself?
It just was one of those, for me, it was one of those things where I felt like I had to experience it. I thought I was going to be the one guy that broke the mold, that did something different. I was going to prove everybody wrong. And there's still so many different ways to prove everybody wrong, but why go against what many of the greats have already done? I know a lot of times people joke about.
Well, just so I understand, just so the listeners understand, you're saying you realize now that taking that approach to, real estate, business, and life in general probably was a mistake, and you wasted a lot of time where you could have just learned from the mistakes of others, opposed to having to experience all that yourself. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Oh, absolutely, and saved a ton of money too, and heartache, and stress, and pain, anguish, argument. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, I just, I remember going to a motivational seminar where the whole theme was was basically that you choose to suffer. Suffering is by choice. It's not by consequence, or I should say that is the consequence for choosing things that we do. If we choose into the wrong action.
Why would someone choose to suffer, Todd? Why did you choose to suffer?
A lot of people
in retrospect.
Do it. A lot of it for me was just going, like I was saying before, is I wanted to prove everybody wrong. That I could do it my way was the best way. And I'll tell you, part of that probably was some pride, some ego that I had. And it's taken me a while to get there, because when I first started, I was going, I want the big lights, the flashy, names on all the signs, and be the name in everybody's household. But it's taken me a long time to humble myself, if that's a good way to put it, to get to where I just say, you know what, I'm not going to be everybody's favorite cup of tea. I'm not going to be the one that's there, and I need to stick to do what's best for me and move forward with trying to help those that I can and in the best way that I can, and really surround myself with better people that are telling me or have been there, have done that, and can help guide me to where I really want to be at the end, which is making a better life for my family, so that and leaving this world in a better place than what I found it.
Yeah, man, for sure. Being of service to other people is what I heard you say. And we're going to get into lead generation, as everyone wants to know that. Obviously, you came around the hard way to realizing that doing what you don't want to do and you don't want to do at the highest level, in your own words, was the only way. But before we get there, you said something to me last night in text, which I thought was really interesting. You said listeners, I know we're going to start basically, some of you are going to be a little bit offended what we're about to talk about, and I want you to monitor your emotional response to some of the things we're about to talk about, and ask yourself why you're feeling agitated by, us talking about teams and us talking about lack of profitability, because some of the comments I get after I have these frank conversations with people like him are conversations where you guys haven't really thought it through. You're treating a team and you're treating the business model that you're emulating as literal. It's basically defending it like some sort of medieval religion. You're not thinking of it in terms of profit. You're not thinking of it in terms of, like, what is the ultimate goal of why you got into real estate? So let's start there and let's work our way back. What was the ultimate reason, now that you've been in the business for a while, that you got into real estate? Why did you decide you needed to earn money? So that's the easy one. But beyond that,
Sure.
Why do you stay in it? Why did you get in real estate?
Right. Originally, when I got into it?
How about originally and how about now?
Okay, yeah, originally got into it because, obviously for the money. And I didn't want to have to deal with other bad realtors that were there with things that were just, trying to put up with that. However, and that has kind of transformed a little bit to where, myself, I have struggled so much trying to learn, and I realized that it really wasn't the realtor's fault. A lot of times, everybody wants the best. Everybody wants to get it. We get into this business, and I know you said it in an earlier podcast where you said if you get into this business to help people. If you don't like helping people, you're in the wrong business, which is certainly true. And that's what gets my warm and fuzzies for me at the end of the day is I love helping people buy and sell their homes, create better net worth through on the business side. But truly more for me is because I've been through it now for 16 years, done a lot of this stuff, had the ups and downs. I want to help other realtors avoid those same pitfalls that I had to do. And so for me, it's having a team or trying to help train other agents, whether they're on my team or not, to help them avoid those mistakes and to do the right steps. Because I don't want to create any controversy, but I would go out on a limb and say that a lot of the designated brokers that are in many of the brokerages across the country are weak when it comes to training. They're good about teaching agents how to fill out forms, but beyond that, they're not good at teaching them how to be successful or how to grow their business and how to connect with the community.
And as someone who owns a coaching and training organization, I want to thank all those weak training brokers out there. They've allowed Julie and I to thrive for a couple decades selling coaching and training to agents. But But you know what? In their defense, I have to say the brokerage model right now has got a serious. It's for a long time it's been under just the margins in the brokerage model. Some of these brokers I talk to, it's really sad. They're losing money and they're actually having to sell real estate in order just to basically keep the lights on. They don't know how to exit out of it. They have all these standing obligations and the stress that they have.
Sure.
They don't have time to train up agents. They have to placate the egos, and that's ultimately what happens in a lot of these brokerage models. If you got 100 agents, there's probably 20 of them that are, basically they're just big ego-y messes, and if you don't placate them, and they'll ask for too much commission split, and I mean the brokerage model's tough. And so
it is.
Yeah, but I get your
That's
point.
why
Let's talk about something though that you and I talked about, which I thought was quite interesting because you've experienced this. You said specifically when you were building your team, you had to learn. You decided that you did not want to have to spend $1 million to keep $100,000. You said something like that. What did you mean by that with regards to teams?
Yeah, so a lot of that was, was trying to do the lead generation, I really was just trying to give more leads to my agents. And we were selling, a couple of years ago, we sold tons of homes. That at one point, and I know this was a hot topic, that that company that starts with a Z and
Zillow? We talk about Zillow all the time. We talk about Zillow all the time.
Yeah.
So you were buying a ton of leads from Zillow. You had buyer agents. You were
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we had buyers agents. We were crushing it. I mean, I was closing probably 15 to 20 deals a month with it. And so because of that, I justified spending nearly, I hope my wife doesn't hear this on the podcast, but nearly $15,000 a month. And I can tell you her jaw just hit the floor right now. She hears this. But it was things were good. We were getting a ton of business coming in. And it was one of those things where I didn't still fully understand the cost acquisition or the profitability with things that are there. And so at the end of the day, that I went through at the end of that year and added up my numbers. Zillow was 42% of the deals that I had closed the last year that I advertised with them, heavy, hard hitting like that. And it was, I think I spent almost $100,000 towards Zillow that year. And and I went through and I looked, and we generated about $225,000 in commissions. And I had let's split model.
So there, you just said the last bit. So listeners, here's what I want you to focus on, okay? What he's trying to explain to you is the amount of money that he was earning net after paying the buyer's agents and buying the leads was, what he just said. Now, he did not factor in, I'm sure he had a transaction coordinator. He did not factor in all the time and all the adult daycare activities he had to basically, put himself through to manage the buyer's agents. He did not talk about all of that. So when he earned, $200,000 or whatever, what was the number again, Todd?
It was about $225,000 in commission.
Off buyer side, just off buyer side. Yeah.
Yeah. So
100 went to paying the buyer's agents off the 200 gross, and then you'd spent 100 in buying leads, so you made off the buyer side a total of nothing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But you got a bunch of awards and plaques, and everyone thought you were a badass.
Yeah, everybody said it was a wonderful thing. So and everybody knew who I was. I mean, I remember that later that year, Zillow came in, and because we still weren't syndicated directly with our MLS feed, and I know we did a brokers open or a designated broker meeting, and I went to the meeting and talking to the Zillow rep, everybody kept expecting me to talk to them, thinking that I knew everything there was about Zillow just because, you go on Zillow and I was there. I was on every spot that you could find in Zillow. So when you see those people, those listing agents or those agents, when you look at a Zillow listing and you see them at that number one spot, I can tell you right now they're paying way too much to be there. So it's
that sounds like that sounded like a slightly sinister laugh, by the way. So so what's the takeaway? What did you learn from that experience? I'm going to take a sidestep. Why did you do it in the first place? Why did you not ever stop when you were building this, thing? Did you not ever stop to do the math and figure out that you weren't going to make any profit? How did you go about spending, researching whether that was a valid business model, or were you just believing that more transactions and everything else follows? Were you just believing that the more units you do, and all of a sudden, basically, the riches follow? Well, talk about it from your experience for the sake of those who are trying to help avoid that same mistake.
Sure. Yeah, the phrase that I used a lot of time was the qualities and the quantity. It was the phrase that gets thrown around a lot, I know, in real estate, and that was exactly what it was. But with that business model in Zillow there, it just doing it as a team leader, trying to sell that many homes and only getting 50% of the commission. I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad deal if I was a solo agent doing it. However, you got to, the time that it took, and I shouldn't say, I want to backtrack, because the time that I took, or the time that every agent spent, you're looking at, you had to take 10 to 15 phone calls per person just to get a face-to-face appointment. It goes into a lot of what you were talking about, a lot of like the back office or the behind-the-scenes type work that was there that I've just come to the conclusion that it just wasn't worth it. The amount of work that you had to do to find those 3 to 5 leads out of the 100 that they send you, it was a tough pill to swallow. For me, the only reason it worked, or I should say, the only reason that I was able to keep afloat, and that was keeping my face out of the water, was just because I was a grinder. Going in and consistently making phone calls, consistently doing it, having that never say die mentality, where buyers agents come, they've gone, and when they left me, I had a huge turn of events a couple of years ago where I had a team of 10 people, and they basically thought they had leverage on me, and came to me and just said, "You need to change our commission split, or we're going to leave." And they were only averaging 1 or 2 sales a month, and so I told them, I said, if you guys want to make more money, then you need to sell more homes. It's that simple in the real estate world. But what happened is they all got together and they thought they had leverage on me, and so I told them to basically, here's the front door, take it or leave it, and they all chose to leave, and I still had those commitments with Zillow and other places. It was a huge upheaval for me on there, and I've never even shared that with anybody. Only those, people probably wonder what's happened in my area, but it was a big mess. It left me in a huge hole, and it took me a long time to climb out of it and really help me. That was kind of the first slap in the face to help me understand that just because, I have the mentality where I can go, hey, I can just continue selling more homes and everything's going to be okay. Money's just a flow. It's easy to find another buyer or another seller and sell a home. And yeah, temporarily it is to do it, but with those big commitments that I had, it nearly ruined me. On that.
Why did no one tell you when you were building this thing up? Obviously, you were emulating something you'd heard. Somebody told you this was the thing to do. Maybe you had some guru that you were following. Maybe you basically were picking up pieces and parts from different sources of information. You never stopped to question the validity of the information you were receiving. You just followed blindly and built this team. Is that correct?
I don't want to know if I'd say blindly. A lot of it certainly was. The Zillow reps were always pushing me to increase my spend. They're going, oh, this is amazing. Showing me how many more deals I'm selling. And so I was just seeing the number going, this is awesome. We're killing it based on the closings that were there. And but at the end of really at the end of the day, I didn't do my job as correctly as I should have. I didn't hold my expenses as accountable as I should have. And it was and I paid dearly for it. It was a very expensive lesson, Tim.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate your bluntness, and I appreciate your honesty, and I hope the listeners are listening. And this is the type of thing, Todd, as you know, you listen to the show, that we talk about virtually every day. So here, guys, sure. I'm bringing in, but by the way, we're about to Todd turned his actor, you got his act together, and we're going to talk about the new Todd Watkins. But what I want you guys to understand is what he's experiencing, what he's expressing in brutal honesty is something that all of you need to hear. And it even gets worse when the economy changes. It even gets worse if you're a broker and you're in this paradigm of buying leads. When the team model was created back in the early 90s, okay, guys, you were not paying your buyer's agents 50%. You were not buying leads from Zillow. You were not doing all these dumb things, and commissions were more. Back when the team model was created, Howard Brinton was the one that spawned it, and then, Keller Williams and other people sort of took it to the next level and all the rest of this. The profit was part of the conversation, but what's happened over time is the commission's been eroded, the expense of running the teams, because buyers agents are demanding more commission split, and you guys are thinking that buying leads, and by you guys thinking you're buying leads, what do I mean by that? Is if you've not been in the business as long as Todd has, then you don't know that buying leads is a relatively new phenomena that essentially leads to a forever financial dependency that will make it so that you're never going to have any real profit out of your business. And so before you get into real estate, or while you're building your team, or while you're thinking about what's next for you, I challenge you not to be considering adding lots of staff just for the sake of adding transactions. It's dumb. Build your business around profit. Your goal in real estate, your product from selling homes, is profit. Yes, happy customers, yes, all those other nice things. But at the end of the day, if you're not making profit, guys, you're not in business. And you won't be in business for long. You're stealing time from yourself. Your own life energy is going out the door just for the sake of doing deals. But you're also stealing it from your family and your loved ones, where you could be doing something else with them. This is just the brutal truth about the insanity that's entered into the real estate business in earnest since like 2008 or 2009, and people are just forever perpetuating it at the detriment of agents. You guys are believing things that are causing you harm, and you're just not slowing down enough to know it. So, Todd, I really appreciate it, man. That's some brutal truth right there, brother. Let's talk about what you're doing now. Let's talk about lead generation. Taking the lessons that you learned from that experience, how did you pivot? What are you doing differently, and what kind of difference has that made in your business?
So basically, with that big, the best way to put it is a mutiny that happened within my team. I felt like I was the captain of a pirate ship, and there was truly a mutiny that was happening. And so at that point, it just became, I had to shut everything off. All my spend on everything. Just said, you know what, this is it. And now I need to go back and focus, basically get back to the basics. And we're focusing on the free or the near free items that are out there. And so because of the lead generation and part of what you were talking about, the online lead generation, that has changed considerably too. Everybody's doing it now. Back then when I was doing it, it was much easier to turn and burn, just call people and set up it and make the calls. It's much more difficult to do even more now than it was then. And so that's why I didn't focus on my circle of influence or focus on the free or the near free things at that point, just because there were so many things that were readily available. But that is, I'd say, up about 3-4 years ago, that changed drastically and has made it
I don't
very,
understand what you're
very
talking
difficult.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Explain.
Okay.
You're saying that the cost of online lead generation or the quality of the leads that you generate online, is that what you're referring to? It just changed 3-4 years ago? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd say it's changed on several fronts. One, it's become more expensive. Two, almost everybody's doing it, so there's a ton more competition now than what there is. And I'll tell you, I like to compete, Tim, but I like to win, darn it. And so if I'm in a pool now where, I'll call people and I still will talk to people on the phone, but they honestly tell me that as soon as they put their name on Zillow or one of those other those other real estate sites, they'll say, I feel like I just put my foot in a shark tank. A bunch of piranhas have now started calling me, and they're getting harassed. And so when you call them, they're all pissed off, and they tell you to pound sand now. And it makes it much more difficult to try to come across as the helpful agent because they're just upset with doing that. And so it forced me to really look at my business model. One, because all the money I had was just going to pay off the obligations that I had and the debt that had incurred because everybody left me. And so I had to go to the free or the near free. So I focused on reaching out to my circle of influence more on a systemized, consistent basis with things that are there. And that's key because you got to stay in front of people. I mean, there's been many people that I've seen that were friends or acquaintances that were in my sphere that I've talked with about real estate, but because I didn't consistently stay in front of them, they just hired their friend or, somebody in their tips group because it was more convenient. Because they said, oh, well, you're too busy. You're so busy you can't even talk to me. So I just hired this person because I didn't want to bug you because I know you're so busy selling homes. And I'm going, are you kidding? We always make time to help people buy and sell homes. But because I didn't convey that message, I've lost out on many other transactions that I could have acquired because of that. And so
let's take a little sidestep. Let's take a sidestep there because you just said a really important thing that I want everyone to understand. What he's expressing to you guys is what any veteran agent will tell you. And sometimes they say it after having experienced what he did. Others of them will say it that's basically the opposite direction. But here's the gist of it. When you take any top producers' closed transactions and you go and you tally up where the deals came from, they're always the majority after maybe 5, maybe 7 years. The majority of them are going to come from centers of influence and past clients. As you're working up, let's say you do 50 deals, you might get in the first 5 years, you might only get maybe a quarter of your deals from centers of influence and past clients. But then as you work it up and you get more efficient with picking up the phone and doing the real work, then you're going to see that it's easy to have that 50 to 75% of all your deals come from COI past clients. Here's the mistake a lot of you guys are making, and this is what social networking is doing to essentially cover up the facts. You guys will get a call from somebody who wants to list their house or buy a house or whatever, and you're going to say, why did you call me? And they might say Facebook, or they might say some social networking thing. But if you don't ask a secondary question, because you were running an ad, let's say, if you don't ask the secondary question, was there any other reason? Did anyone refer you? Then you won't find out that Susie, who you worked with 3 years ago, actually told that person to call you, and that's the real source of the business, and they just happen to find or see you on Facebook for whatever particular reason. They would have called you anyway, or they would have done business with you anyway had they called you, but the Facebook thing makes you think the social worked, and it didn't. The social had nothing to do with why you did the transaction. It didn't remind them. It didn't build your brand. None of those things. All those things are just elegant lies that make you broke. That's the little confrontational part that all of you guys need to come to terms with, because when you go through and you add up where your deals come from, and I know there's coaches and gurus out there that are telling you that all your business can come from social. Well, maybe if you spend enough money and you absolutely positively make no profit, you can generate enough leads from social that you will get enough leads to close and that you'll have some transactions, but you won't have any profit. And at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself, and this is my next question for Todd. Todd, why didn't you do the real work first? Why didn't you pick up the phone? Why didn't you actually put yourself in the grinder mode, and just because it's not like you didn't know that there was another way of doing business other than buying leads. Why didn't you do it essentially some people say it the old school way to begin with?
Right. Honestly, like the instruction I got was here's a phone book. Call some people and let me know when you found somebody that's ready to buy or sell. And that was kind of the training that I got, and beyond just filling out the paperwork. So there wasn't really any guide to what I needed to do. I mean, you heard people say, oh, you need to focus on your circle of influence or talk with them, and I did that a little bit when I first started, but I didn't get much success from it. And so I saw that other people were buying leads online, and so I did it. And it just, and seeing those number of leads, coming through, finding, getting 500, 600 leads a month coming through, it made me feel like, hey, man, I'm really successful. I'm really doing something awesome here. And so the
leads gave you a false sense of security, right?
They did.
But the leads gave you a false sense. And putting them into a drip campaign and putting them into a CRM where you could brag about having 600 people in your CRM that you're dripping on, that gave you a false sense of security, and that probably made it so that you were feeling less anxious about not actually having learned to pick up the phone and do the real work. Is that a fact?
Sure, definitely. The guilty is charged.
Yeah.
So.
Well, not just you, brother, everybody. All right, so now you not only work your centers of influence and past clients, you are doing actual calls to and this is the irony of this whole thing too. I'm going to take you guys around. I think it's a funny joke. I think Todd will too. So I don't know if you guys are listening very intently, but here's Todd, who's basically he's an agent in Washington State kicking some serious butt. He's getting these phone calls from a Zillow rep trying to sell him something that's online lead generation. Do you guys get the irony in that? So here's someone who's trying to sell him online lead generation by picking up the phone. It's almost like they know that the most effective way to make a sale is by picking up the damn phone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So here's a great conclusion that I've come to, Tim, with this, and I hope the listeners can appreciate this. The one early on, I was saying one of the most powerful words that I needed to learn was no. It is empowering to say no. You need to say no 100 times before you give a yes if you're going to try to add something into your business. But here's the conclusion that I came to, is that if people are calling me, it's because they want my money more than I want their service. If I'm calling them, it's because I want their service and I'm happy to give them my money.
Okay.
So it's I know it's something where it's just going like, hey, you know what? Because we get hit up. I get probably 2 or 3 times a day have all sorts of different lead sources that are calling me trying to sell me their services because they want my money. And so I look at it and I'm going, well, if I wanted their service, I would pick up the phone and call them with that. I mean, it's just about anything. It's just like anything on Amazon or wherever else you go. We go and we seek and find what we want. It's so with that. So I know it's kind of maybe a goofy way to look at it, but that's how I look at it.
No, I have to think about it. I like it. It sounds profound, and when I have to think about it. So here's an interesting little observation. In every one of the markets of every one of the agents listing, United States, Canada, I know we have some listeners in Guam. I see we get listens out of Europe. Every single one of you have lists and lists of people that have to sell at your fingertips, and those lists are free. Really, they're free. Now, you can, I suppose, make it complicated, make it sound like you have to run some expensive campaigns and trying to, predict who in your market's going to want to sell their house next, or send out a bunch of postcards and build your brand, and hopefully one day a seller will call you. Or you can just literally download one of these lists of, seller leads where the sellers, not only have they told you that they want to sell their house, but you've also been able to readily, if it's an expired, figure out what the price shouldn't be, otherwise it would have sold. You could see pictures of the house. Okay, you could see all this other stuff. But in addition, if you want to look at unrepresented owners or for sale by owners, same thing. So in this world where everyone's buying leads and everyone's trying to out-brand each other and out-team and out-brag and out-ego, when everyone is choosing to be famous over being rich, you guys are wondering, what the heck should I be doing? How about this? Why don't you figure out and learn how, as Todd has, to pick up the phone and call the people who already have their hands in their air saying, yes, I want to sell my house. Now, he's in a market where there's hardly any expireds because he's in a hot market. So he has to focus on, the other sources that you guys can learn how to do. But at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. Todd, help these guys understand that they should not procrastinate learning to do the real work of real estate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody that joins my team now we focus on the 3 things that we can control: what to say, how to say it, and how many people you say it to. And the beauty of that is it's all free. It's it's sweat equity, putting in, learning to talk to people. Actually, this is a relationship business. And so talking to the people that you have the relationships with first are amazing. Find yourself 2 or 3 people that are proponents or huge fans of you, and get them to make sure that they're helping push your business as well on it. I mean, that's just it's getting the word of mouth referral is the strongest advertising that you can ever have.
Especially nowadays where you have all these dubious review sites. Especially nowadays where you have all this dubious information. People have gone to personal referrals, as in talking to somebody, more than ever before, because they don't trust the sources of information because they know it's mostly gamed. Well, this person has 5 stars review. This person has 4 stars review. This person has 16 million reviews on this website. Well, guess what? My neighbor said I should call this person because this person did a good job. I'm going with what my neighbor said. Everyone operates like that, and yet agents are afraid to pick up the phone and learn how to do the real work. By the way, guys, Todd has done something really generous. He's put together, actually, you talk about it, and guys, he's going to give this away to you for free. No strings attached. because he and I have been talking about this podcast for a while, and he said, you know what, I want to do something in the light of helping agents who maybe are going down the wrong path and don't really know it, and I want to make their journey a little bit smoother and easier. Guys, you know, I've never had a podcast guest that actually came ready to give away something for free. So, Todd, describe what it is.
Okay, so basically I just put together a little booklet that's called Tips and Tricks, you know, stuff that I wish I knew when I first started out. It was really a booklet that I made to myself saying, hey, dummy, like, here's the things that you should have focused on when you first started, or what I wish I had known where somebody had taught. And so I'm passing it, you know, I'm giving this booklet to new agents in my area, and I've had a lot of success with it, and I want to share it with realtors across the country, because I know there's a lot of people that are like, that really don't know what to do. And I truly believe that every realtor should be able to sell 2 homes a month. If you put in the work or do, you know, just follow the simple steps that are in the booklet that I did, you should be able to sell 2 homes a month. It's just being consistent. I mean, it may take 60 to 90 days to get you comfortable doing it. But beyond that, you know, I've been able to, even with all this turmoil and things that I've done, Tim, and I hope I don't come across bragging, but, you know, money is the unit where we can measure our success. I still make, you know, over $100,000 a year, no matter what market we're in. And it's in a good market or a bad market, you'll still be able to be successful as long as you put in the work, stay, you know, and pay attention to the basics. And so that's what this is. It is basically a booklet that tells you how to approach, like, for sell-by owners, expired listings. You know, there's a little bit of door knocking in there as well, working with your circle of influence. And then there's some scripts in there as well, with things that are there. It's basically stuff that I've just that I've come up with, where, you know, everybody's got their research and development departments. I've just ripped off and duplicated, and have been fairly successful with what I've got. And I just want to share it so that you guys can be successful as well.
Well, this goes back to the question I asked you originally, right? What would have been the things you wish you would have known 18 years ago when you got into real estate? There it is. It's encapsulated into the booklet, the book he created. So, guys, here's all you got to do is just text the word TIPS, TIPS, to 88111. Text the word TIPS, TIPS. Did I get it right?
Excuse me, it's tricks.
Tricks.
T-R-I-C.
Sorry.
Tricks, yes. No, that's okay. So, tricks, T-R-I-C-K-S.
Yes. Thank you for telling me how to spell tricks, Todd. That was good of you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want anybody selling the cereal. So
That's true. So text the word tricks, TRICKS, to 888-111. Text the word tricks, TRICKS, to 888-111. All right, so the last question I've got for you, and dude, really sincerely appreciate your time and you being so honest, because you are speaking to the masses of the agents out there who are right now trying to decide where should they go in their business. I see questions on Facebook and different places. What should I be spending my money on? You know, guys,
right.
Stop thinking like that. Stop doing that. Stop acting like that. Stop thinking you can buy your way to business. Stop looking for shortcuts. Listen to what this man is telling you. He's telling you the truth. He's telling you exactly what he wished he would have known. And by the way, all of you, because the vast majority of you, it's just, you know, a fact, have not been in the business for certainly 18 years, probably have been in the business for less than 5 years. You're not going to want to listen to what he said because it involves real work. It's going to involve you doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And remember when I was telling you guys earlier to monitor what your actual reaction would be to what he had to say? Well, if you found yourself saying, too hard, too long, I want it faster, I want it easier, I want to hit the easy button, you're going to experience the exact same thing he experienced. Of course you are. Everybody does. The business model that he was following, and he did not know it, and probably when he started following it, it didn't, you know, become what it has become. But the business model that he was following is not designed around making profit. It's designed around doing transactions. It's designed around spending money to have units so that you can brag about it. So when you go to your awards banquet, you can be number one at this, number one at that. It's literally a conversation all of you need to be having with yourselves, or you ask yourself, if you have a choice to be rich or famous, which do you choose? Everyone says rich, and yet, what do you guys do with your money? You spend the money on trying to be famous. I have a feeling you and I are totally and completely resonating. Anything you want to say to that? I have a feeling you have something you want to say.
Yeah, no, it definitely is with it on there, and it's part of the next thing that I had to do as I was going through my journey here, Tim, is just changing, is eliminating a lot more expenses as well to become more profitable, and one of those things was honestly was closing my brokerage that I had formed, and that was a big pill to swallow. It was that pride thing that comes up. I mean, that seems to be a lot of the issues that I have. I'm sure it is with a lot of other realtors, that ego where I felt like I was a failure closing my brokerage to actually go and join a different brokerage that's revolutionizing the world, where it is basically the Netflix model, and what I was running was the Blockbuster model beforehand. And
well, actually, I was going to ask you about that.
Okay.
Why did you decide to move to eXp Realty? What were those are the talking points that a lot of eXp talks about. But it was interesting for me to hear you just say you had to struggle to basically give up what you thought was your autonomy of owning your own brokerage and all that, which does go back to ego, right? So why did you ultimately decide to move over to eXp Realty?
It was for several things. One was definitely to eliminate several $1,000s worth of expenses from what I had to do, because it's a huge nut that you got to crack. I mean, I was having to produce just to make my office stay open, and then had to produce twice as much just to pay my housing bill on top of that. And so I was truly I realized that I was living the definition of insanity. I know that everybody overplays that quote, that we're saying, the definition of insanity is to continue doing the same thing and expect different results. But that's exactly what I've been doing my whole real estate career. And it wasn't until I looked at what eXp offered that it opened my eyes. And I could not unsee what I'd seen. And so a couple of things that for me was, one, that I'd always wanted to be able to offer some type of retirement package at my brokerage and healthcare. I'm not able to do that as a small mom and pop shop type deal. Like, I didn't have the buying power, the negotiating power to do that. So those were two things that eXp was able to provide for me. So it's providing, CRM systems for free. So now no longer do I have to spend $500,000, $600,000, $3,000 a month on CRM systems. It's something that they provide a system for you there. It's a really good system on there, from there. So, but
so they basically, you could replace a lot of your brokerage's expenses because they had essentially best of breed technology. But the other thing, and I think listeners really need to get this clear in their heads, most of you guys are dependent on transactional income. And the thing about that is it's great, right? Provided the transactions are still coming in. Todd's, generating all of his leads himself, so he's got great profit margins, and so he's making plenty of money. But here's the thing. What's his plan going forward? What's his plan for retirement? What's his plan for passive income? You guys have got to explore, at least have eXp Realty on your radar, because it really is the best thing to happen to real estate agents in the couple decades that I've been paying attention to real estate, in terms of something that is an absolute pure play, best of breed, agent-centric business model. I've never seen anything like it. And look, Todd is an eXp agent. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to talk with you about it. Just text the word TRICKS, TRICKS. Not only will you get his book, but I'm sure he'll follow up with you and answer any questions you might have about eXp. And you can text the word TRICKS, TRICKS, to 888-111. Now, here I have a little fun thought for you. How many of you are listening, actually having really intensely listened and appreciated everything he had to say, but then when he started talking about eXp, how many of you started to a little bit get skeptical about the things he'd said before? That's not about what he said and what he and I talked about. That's about you. That's about your mindset to new ideas. Maybe eXp to you is something that's totally foreign and makes you uncomfortable. Well, connect with Todd. Find out about it. Text the word TRICKS, TRICKS, to 888-111. Or maybe you're somebody who's offended because we're talking about brokerage models on our podcast. Some of you are like that. I get that. But guess what? It's my obligation, my moral obligation, to tell you what I find might out in the marketplace that might be something that's going to help you shorten your path up to the top of the mountain. That's the reason I have on guests like Todd. That's the reason Julie and I go down the rabbit hole with so many of these controversial, for real estate anyway, topics that we do, because we're trying to help you. We're trying to put you in a position that 3 years, 2 years, 12 months, 10 years from now, you are in a massively better financial position than you are now, because that is the point of being in business, to make a profit. And with that profit, you reinvest it in things that produce passive income. And the definition of rich is where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money, and you have enough passive income coming in so that if you chose to, you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about doing transactions at the same level anymore. So, Todd, anything else you'd like to say to these guys as we round the bend?
Man. The text tricks from there, get the booklet. There's a 7-minute video that kind of explains briefly some of the EXP stuff as well. So there's 2 links in that when you text me for the download there. But beyond that, I'd just say, feel free to reach out to me if you've got questions, concerns, whatever. I'm an open book. I'm happy to share any of that information with you. But focus on what makes you happy. Become a professional. Part of my thing was I tried to get big too quick. And so you need to focus, number one, on getting your circle of influence under control. Get that. Once you're comfortable working your sphere of influence, add one more lead generation source, and only work that generation source in conjunction with your SOI for 6 months. Become a professional at whatever your new lead source is before you try adding more. Don't get too big too quick. Become a professional. Specialize in what it is that you do before you move forward.
Sounds like Todd listens to the podcast. Yes. I mean, guys, that's the bottom line, what he said. And build around profit and build around being of service to other people. So, hey, Todd, I had a lot of fun talking with you. You've got a great personality. You radiate the exact quality that the industry needs more of, one of giving, one of sincerity. And look, guys, you listened to him talk. You heard what he had to say. How do you feel right now? I bet you feel more confident. I bet you feel excited because you listened to Todd and what he was saying, and he was being really honest. And there was no gray area in between what he and I were talking about. It was really clear what we were saying. Are you listening? Are you going to make the mistake that, frankly, everyone does, not just him, where you think when you're younger or maybe even when you're older, I'm stubborn, I'm going to figure out how to do it myself, I'm going to make it so that I'm going to be the first one ever? No, don't do that. The smartest way for you to obtain the largest amount of success the quickest is following in the footsteps of others, or more specifically, learning from the mistakes of others opposed to forcing yourself to have to make them yourself. Listen to what he said. He's trying to shorten your version. Take it seriously. Hey, man, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I appreciate it as well, and hopefully the message comes across. Either choose to struggle or choose to succeed. One of the two.
That's it. Hey, guys. Text the word TRICKS, TRICKS, to 888-111. Thank you, Todd. Everyone else, have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.